Okay. So as we were discussing in the last lecture, we discussed about Brown-Sequard syndrome, and next on we are moving to other syndromes. Specifically, first we'll see the anterior. So first thing that we talked about was one portion or one half of the spinal cord is affected. Yes, so this is the transverse section. It is affected, so it will affect both the sensory and motor function. If we talk about the anterior portion, which is mainly comprised of the descending tracts, or we can say all the motor functions. So that will be anterior cord syndrome. For posterior, which is relatively rare, there will be all ascending tracts related to sensory functions. So sensations will be affected most common, and also we are going to see about the central cord syndrome as we have described in the last lecture. So again, we are starting, we have completed the Brown-Sequard and now we are moving to anterior cord syndrome. So in anterior cord syndrome, why does it happen first of all? So it will happen when cord contusion during vertebral fracture or dislocation. So almost for all the conditions that we are discussing, this will be very common. Vertebral fractures. Why? Spinal cord can say spinal cord is lying between the vertebrae. From the vertebral body, spinal canal that is located in the vertebra. From there it is passing. So vertebral fracture per se, if it ruptures at any point, it may directly occlude the presence of spinal cord. Specifically happening in flexion injuries. Also, we are going to see in this lecture itself mechanism of injury. Kaya mechanism થી spinal cord ને directly injury થાય. Vertebra kaya fracture થશે, which direction the head will move into. Injury to anterior spinal artery or its feeder artery. So blood supply of specifically the portion is anterior spinal artery. So if that is affected, anterior portion will be affected, and if anterior portion is affected, motor symptoms will appear. Herniated IV disc, intervertebral disc. If they are herniated, they can move in anterior, posterior, or in lateral direction. It is more commonly seen movement in anterior direction. Hence, it can cause anterior cord syndrome also. Clinical features, as we already described. So, bilateral element paralysis at the level of lesion. Yeah, injury as we talked about. It is more about the interneuron, the level of this, you can say difference is level of interneuron. So that is affected. So it will be element at the level of lesion. UMN below the level of the lesion. So niche badu UMN type of sign and symptom. Bilateral loss of pain, temperature and light touch below the level, and tactile discrimination, vibration, proprioception are preserved. So only pain, temperature and touch they will be affected. All other sensations will be normal. That is the main anterior cord syndrome. So you can see shaded areas showing the injury. This part is affected. Level of injury, say for example, is T3, T4. Loss of movement, pain and temperature, still able to feel position, vibration and touch. So that is the difference. Also one important difference in Brown-Sequard that we saw, one half was affected. So one part was affected. Here it will not be bilateral because the whole anterior aspect is affected. Yes. So there unilateral or ipsilateral and contralateral were used. Here everything will be bilateral. Yes. After this central cord syndrome, so for central cord syndrome, as the name suggests, the main thing is the affection of the central portion of the spinal cord. So hyperextension injuries will lead to such a disease or such a condition, syndrome. Congenital or degenerative narrowing of the spinal canal. So it can also be congenital from birth. If the spinal canal is very narrow, at that time it can lead to this central cord syndrome. Clinical features, again you can see involvement from the shaded region. You can see it is bilateral, nothing will be unilateral. So bilateral element paralysis at the level of lesion. Similarly, UMN paralysis below the level of lesion. Upper limb will always be more affected than lower limb, depending on the site of the lesion. Sacral sparing, so S4, S5. Zone of partial preservation. In the last lecture we discussed, yes, in the classification given by Asia. So here there will be sacral sparing, zone of partial preservation. Bilateral, loss of pain, temperature, light touch and pressure, all this will be affected. Yes, because these are passing ascending tracks, yes, as well as descending, as there is always paralysis. And the last, posterior cord syndrome, which is very rare, it does not happen very frequently. Preservation of motor function, sense of pain and light touch. जो जे interior માં થતું તો એનું complete opposite. Motor બધું જ preserve, pain preserve, temperature preserve. એના સિવાય બધું જ affected. Loss of proprioception, discrimination and wide-based steppage gait. Yes, the patient will be walking with wide gait because they do not have sensory input. Proprioception is affected. And proprioception is affected, we have described in balance also in your exercise therapy. Yes, if the patient has no feedback, they have to look what is going on down and decide the steps accordingly. So they'll keep their base of support wide so as to prevent falling. So this was about the posterior cord syndrome. One more syndrome, that is cauda equina. Yes, cauda equina is frequently an incomplete lesion. Yes, because so many nerves, peripheral nerves are originating. Not all nerves can be damaged at the same time. Few will be left off. Yes, so partially they will be damaged and partially they will be preserved. Most of the time it is an incomplete lesion. Cauda equina are peripheral nerve injuries. Yes, elemental. Why? In interneuron तो ऊपर है, जहाँ spinal cord पूरी થઈ ગઈ, ત્યાં જ clear થઈ ગયા था, and it is only the peripheral part that is moving downwards. Full reinnervation is not possible. Even though it is element type, we are also going to see about the PMI, that is peripheral nerve injuries. So there also the same things will be applied. The distance between the lesion and the point of innervation are difficult or they are wide apart. Say for example, I have a nerve shape. Yes, this nerve is cut from here. Yes, now there are specific rules. Okay, if the distance is more than, say for example, 2 mm. આ 2 mm થી વધારે જો ડિસ્ટન્સ હોય તો એ રીઇનર્વેટ નહીં થઈ શકે, નર્વ્સ પાછી ભેગી ના થઈ શકે. યસ, axonal regeneration may not occur along the original distribution of the nerve. Another thing, અહીંયા શું છે, these are so many nerves together. કેટલી બધી nerves એક સાથે છે, તો ઘણી બધી nerves એક સાથે હોય. Yes, and કોઈ injure થાય તો there are chances, because they are in so much approximation, it may link to new nerve instead of original nerve that was following. Yes, બીજી normal nerve છે એની સાથે જોડાઈ જશે જ્યાંથી કટ થાય છે અને બીજો પાર્ટ એમને રહેશે. So that is something as we call axonal regeneration not occurring along the original distribution. Our original distribution છે, but it is now following another distribution. It has joined on to another nerve. Third, axonal regeneration will be blocked by scarring. What we have learned so far in UMN lesions, yes, MS, ALS, gliosis, this will be present, and if regeneration does not happen in time, there will be scar formation. Function of the nerve is completely lost. પછી કાંઈ function ના કરી શકે. The end organ may no longer be functioning once reinnervation occurs. More importantly, nerve નું કામ શું છે? Muscle ને provide કરવું. Yes, and to create an action potential. Most of the times it has also autonomic functions, also other functions, but most of the times. Now say for example, during the spinal cord injury, the muscle was also injured and this nerve was cut. Nerve cut થઈ ગઈ, muscle injured થઈ ગયું, atrophied થઈ ગયું, complete atrophy, muscle atrophy happens, and then it gets reinnervated. તો પછી શું કામ? muscle જ નથી રહ્યું, muscle is completely atrophied. Then there is no use of this reinnervation. Yes, so that is end organ. Here in our case, muscles may not be longer be function once reinnervation occurs. So reinnervation થઈ પણ જાય, even if that happens, end organ જે છે એ જ functioning નથી, કોઈ છે જ નહીં. Sometimes it may even be removed for XYZ reason. So at that time it will be no longer useful. The rate of regeneration slows and finally stops about 1 year. So maximum time for peripheral nerves to regenerate is 1 year. Remember this term. We are also going to revise, as I discussed, peripheral nerve injuries, a topic that we are going to see in neurology itself. Yes. So these are the 5 main reasons. So reason કે બંને પહેલા તો કટ જ્યાં થયા છે બંને છેડા બહુ જ દૂર છે. So large distance. Second, axonal regeneration happens, but happens along a different distribution. બીજી nerve સાથે વયું છે. Third, axonal regeneration blocked by scarring. So scar formation, gliosis formation, that will again lead to no functioning. Fourth, end organ may no longer be available or visible or functional. And fifth, rate of regeneration is maximum by 1 year. By 1 year, because there are very less chances that it will grow and the nerve will become normal. So this is about the cauda equina syndrome. Why? There is no full regeneration. एकदम normal થવું possible નથી for such a lesion, even though it is endemic type, lower motor neuron type. Okay. Now coming to mechanism. Injury type, we saw the risk factors, we saw the classification, injury soon. But how does the injury happen? In the TBI, traumatic brain injuries or head injuries, we discussed about hook counter-hook mechanism. And similarly, such mechanisms do exist for cervical and thoracic as well as lumbar region of the spinal cord. Yes, so how does it happen? Which are the structures that will get involved? All the things we are going to see. More commonly, what we see are flexion, we can say compression, hyperextension, along with that flexion rotation. These are very common. Yes, are the two commonly common say. Something that we know as shearing and decompression are much more rare. Now, as the name suggests, yes, flexion injuries. Flexion injuries એટલે કઈ પણ પાછળથી એવું લાગે that your head moves into flexion or the whole spine, vertebral columns move into flexion. Yes. Say for example, a bat is hit and it moves forward. Yes. So પાછળના structures જે પણ છે, posterior ligaments, posterior muscles, posterior whole, even the vertebra, they go for fracture from the posterior direction. Yes. And that will cause injury from the posterior direction. So that is flexion type of injury. Mechanism of injury is something hitting your head, moving your head into flexion. Compression injuries, falling from the height, સીધું compression આવે spine ઉપર and it will cause burst fracture. Yes, કોઈ પણ વસ્તુ ઉપરથી પડે, કાચનો ગ્લાસ હોય ઉપરથી પડે શું થાય, ભૂકા થઈ જાય. The same thing, vertebral column, it causes contraction or compression and that will lead to complete burst fractures. Third, hyperextension, something from the front comes. Yes, a bat or something, what we'll discuss in the flexion. Opposite of that comes and the anterior structures, all the anterior structures will be going for opening or you can say injury. Yes, all the structures will be dislocated, bony structures will be dislocated and soft tissues will be burst open. And flexion rotation. Along with flexion, if there is a component of rotation, so the opposite side in which the head is moving, left side head moves and the right side na structures pacha injured thase. Too much rare are shearing. Yes, shearing means coming in contact. एक vertebra ऊपर दूसरी vertebra आगे खसी जाए. That is shearing, but it is very rare. And decompression. Decompression means moving apart. Yes. So hold the legs of an individual and pull them apart. So that is an example of decompression. That is very rare again. More common are flexion, compression, hyperextension, and flexion rotation. Very rarely shearing and decompression. We are going to see one by one which are they. So it will be very clear through diagrams also. The first is mechanism. Common mechanisms are flexion, compression, hyperextension, and flexion rotation. Forces result in either fracture or dislocation of the vertebrae. The highest frequency of injury occurs between C5 and C7 in the cervical region and between T12 and L2 in the thoracolumbar region. These levels are at most prone to injury. The most common reason for cervical being involved is increased range of motion equals to decreased stability. And here the shape of the vertebrae is as such that chances of injury are much more common. So two main regions, C5 to C7 and T12 to L2, both these are most common regions where you can find the injury much more common compared to other regions of the same spinal cord. So this is flexion. Yes, something coming from behind. Yes. So say for example, This will also, you can consider the Cook mechanism of the Cook counter mechanism that you discussed of traumatic brain injury. So head is coming forward. Yes, head is coming forward. So moving into flexion, etiology, head on collision or blow to the back of the head, and this is the most common type. Yes, the head moves into flexion, and then it will lead to associated fractures, that is wedge fracture of anterior or vertebral body. High percentage of injuries occur from C4 to C7 and from T12 to L2, what we discussed in just the previous slide. Associated injuries, tearing of the posterior ligaments. Head flexion માં move થાય છે. It is moving into flexion, so all the structures here will go for injury. So posterior ligament fractures, disruption of disc, anterior dislocation of the vertebral bodies. Why vertebral bodies will go for anterior dislocation? Because if the disc is moving out, there are chances the vertebra will move out in the same direction, and that is why it will lead to anterior force and dislocation in the same side. Second, compression, as we discussed, fall directly on the head will lead to such type of injuries. So compression, what will be the mechanism or etiology? Vertical or axial blow of head. Yes, see to a small child or an individual just falls on the head. So there is compression force along the spine and causing the fracture. Closely associated with flexion injuries. Concave fracture of the end plate, explosion or burst fracture or teardrop fracture. These are all examples of the same. Multiple fractures, એક જ ના ઘણા બધા fractures થઈ છે. That is also known as burst or explosive fracture. Bone fragments may lodge in the core, rupture of the disc. So these small fragments, yes, एक small fragment, the spinal cord ने एक કરીને injure કરી શકે. So it is much more dangerous compared to flexion injury. And rupture of the disc. Yes, the disc line between these two can also become ruptured because of the injured portion or the remains of the bone, which are tiny pieces. The tiny pieces છે ગમે ત્યાં જઈને disc માં હોય કે spinal cord માં can get injured. The third is the hyperextension, counter coup. Yes. So why it happens? Strong posterior force such as rear end collision falls with a chin hitting a stationary. So say for example you are sitting right in a chair stationary and someone is hitting the chair from behind. Yes, so that is something termed as rear end collision. પાછળથી કોક આવીને ધક્કો મારે, that is rear end. Falls with chin hitting a stationary object. Yes, also something is very stationary. Very say for example I am walking, a table is placed right and I fall and I have hit on my chin. So that also is a example of etiology of hyperextension. This is rare compared to the flexion, and second is compression, third is again hyperextension. Associated with fractures of the posterior elements because the force here increases. Yes, force here increases. And this will all open up the structures of the anterior part. So avulsion fracture of the anterior aspect of the vertebrae. Associated rupture of longitudinal ligament, rupture of disc associated with cervical lesions. Flexion rotation, as we described, along with the flexion force, there will be some amount of the rotational force also. So flexion rotation, posterior to anterior force directed at rotated vertebral column. So whichever is rotated vertebral column, depending on the side it is rotating, the opposite structures will get the burst. Fracture of posterior pedicle, articular facets and laminae, and associatedly rupture of posterior and interspinous ligament. That will be the injury part. Two additional mechanisms as we talk, shearing and distraction. Shearing when horizontal force is applied to the spine related to the adjacent segment. So one segment of the spine, the thoracic segment stable and a cervical segment and the yes, very much less common. For that, what you have to do, you have to place the patient in such a position that the patient cannot move from the one region and the above region you provide a push. That is very rare condition in which it can happen. So shearing is rare, and distraction involves flexion force and at least least common mechanism. So pulling them apart. Yes, compression no opposite, distraction. So you are pulling two vertebrae apart and causing all the segments to open up or to injure. That is something distraction. It is the least common. Okay. After we have discussed mechanism, very briefly, now we want to discuss about which are the main clinical features also of the spinal cord injury. Yes, we have discussed the mechanisms, we have discussed the etiology, we have discussed the pathology. Now we are going to see about clinical manifestation. When a patient is coming to you, તમારી પાસે patient આવે છે and what all things you will assess, what all things the patient will complain of. These all things will be enlisting one by one. So first and foremost, when there was stroke, yes, the brain went into shock. May it be TBI or stroke itself. Yes, the brain itself shut down all the functions. Similarly, the spine will also shut down because it is an extension of brain. It is also nervous tissue. In a injury, the first thing they will do is lock down everything they have. Yes. So first phase is spinal shock, believed to result from very abrupt withdrawal of connection between higher centers and spinal cord. Absence of all reflex activity. All the reflex activities will be lost. Yes, that includes superficial as well as deep tendon reflexes. Yes. After that, you can also see for flaccidity. Yes, spinal shock. So if there is shock, of course the patient will go for decreased sensations, decreased motor performance, no motor performance you can say. So that is flaccidity, loss of sensation and motor function. Below the level of the lesion. At the level, there will be signs of UMN type lesion as we had already described. It may last from several days to several weeks. Similarly, in TBI also we had discussed if it lasts for too long, there are chances the patient will have worse prognosis. Similar is the case. If the patient is having spinal shock for prolonged period of time, there are chances the patient will not recover for much better prognosis. May last, okay. First indication of bulbocavernous, first indicator of the resolving spinal shock is a positive bulbocavernous reflex. What is bulbocavernous reflex? It is a reflex which is also termed as Oniski sign, Oniski reflex. So you can say testing the spinal shock and gaining the information about the state of spinal cord injuries. We'll be discussing, of course, what is bulbocavernous reflex in detail. So to test this, first we check for the anal sphincter. Yes, so you put in a finger and check for the motor performance through the anal sphincter. This reflex can be tested electrophysiologically also. You can cause the reflex by electrophysiological means also. But that is the first reflex that comes into picture when the patient is recovering from spinal cord injury. That is the first positive sign that the spinal shock is now being reduced. Motor and sensory function. So motor and sensory, complete or partial loss of muscle function below the level of the lesion. Yes, as we talked, it will be UMN type, and that is again during the shock, it will be UMN type. Impaired or absent sensation below the level of the lesion. Clinical presentation, this is the most important line you should remember. Clinical presentation depends on the neurological level, completeness of the lesion and the symmetry of the lesion. So if it is Brown-Sequard syndrome, it is unilateral. But if it is anterior or posterior or central cord, it will be bilateral syndrome. So first it depends on the syndrome or the affection area. Second, neurological level. It might affect T4, it might affect L2 level, it might affect C3 level. So what is more severe? C3 level compared to T1, compared to L2. Yes. So depending on the site of the lesion. Also completeness. We talked about complete and incomplete lesion. So both of these are important to know, or all three of these are together important to know what will be the prognosis and what will be the signs and symptoms. So T4 level avoid, to upper limb will be spared. Yes, C4, C5 level avoid, to upper limb will be involved. That is tetraplegia. Yes, and if only lower portions are affected, there will be only paraplegia. It might be complete paraplegia, it may be paresis, that is weakness. Some muscles affected, others are spared comparatively. Okay. Fine, we'll keep it till here, we won't move forward because autonomic dysreflexia is a complex term and will require at least 10 to 15 minutes for you to understand this. So it is better we won't move forward and we'll be discussing the same in the next lecture. Yes, any doubts you have till now, please let me know. specifically mechanism of injury and also in the first few symptoms that we had described today. Do you have any doubt? Reply in the chat with yes or no, everyone.